Welcome to another video, guys. Today we will look at 5 of the best performing decks after the Hall of Fame, with which you can climb till Ashes of Outland comes out. Blizzard put us in a very weird micro meta right now for the last 2 weeks of the Year of the Dragon, but I will do my best to give you guys good decks with which you can climb for the rest of the year. I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button if you enjoy what I'm doing, and it would be awesome if you hit subscribe if you're new as well. Now, let's get into the video. I hope you guys benefited greatly from the Hall of Fame, but do what you can to save that dust for the new Year of the Phoenix, and try not to spend too much on old meta decks. If you guys have tons of dust, sure, craft whatever you want, but if you have 10 or even 15k dust, do what you can to save that dust and don't spend it for now. It would be better for you to wait for the new meta and wait for it to settle and make your move then. The 5 decks I'm about to show you are doing great in the current meta, but there are no guarantees they will continue to work after the new meta comes. So if you're missing too many of their cards, just look for something else or just play the decks you already have. Anyway, let's start off with Hunter. This class had all sorts of decks that were tier 1 in the current expansion, and even after Leroy hit Hall of Fame, the situation remains pretty much the same. Dragon Hunter still works like a charm just by adding 1 extra freezing trap, but now let's talk about Dragon Highlander Hunter, which is currently supposedly the best performing deck right now. The deck works very well because it can be very fast and aggressive, but it can also switch gears and go for the value game too. Taking the right approach against each of your opponents is what makes or breaks a great Highlander Dragon Hunter player. Don't forget that Zephyrus got access to quite a few new spells or changed spells in his pool after the tweaks Priest received, so now on 4 mana you can receive Holy Nova or even the new Shadow Word of Ruin, which can destroy your opponent's fat board. The matchups for the Highlander Dragon archetype look like this. Keep in mind that the stats are not too accurate, since this is not the exact deck, but it's for the whole archetype and it's from the last 7 days, so the pre-Hall of Fame meta is skewing the results. Overall, you can see that the Paladins are not your best friends, and Res Priest is quite a hard matchup too, but other than that, you should be pretty good. Rogues and Warriors will be pretty good matchups for you, so if you see a lot of those on your way to climbing, consider using this deck. On the Mulligan, you want to get a good 1-drop, the Fairy Dragon, Zephyrus, the Weapon, and maybe even Animal Companion and Snip Snap. Do what you can to curve out nicely, and if you have already a 1 and a 2-drop, you can even consider keeping Bran, which is an amazing drop on turn 7 or even on turn 6. Like I said, Dragon Hunter is still working quite nicely, and you can steal quite a lot of wins with Face Hunter too. But Quest Hunter took quite the big hit, since Leroy was not only a great charge minion for them, but it also buffed up their Unleash the Hounds. Next up we have Token Druid. This deck is still performing quite nicely, and it can deal with pretty much anything the current meta throws at it. The Hall of Fame didn't really affect it, so it's business as usual for it. It still curves out consistently, with the occasional bomb turns where you flood the board out of control, and this version runs Goru for that mid and late game too. On the matchups, only Mech Paladin and Gala can put a real fight against you. They can overwhelm the board even better than you sometimes, and it would be pretty hard for you to get back on it after that. The other matchups look pretty good for you though. On the Mulligan you're looking for your good 1 and 2 drops, and if you already have those, you can even keep Landscaping and Force of Nature. Garden Gnome can be great for you if you can set it up for turn 3 or 4, but it can backfire pretty hard for you if the cards don't land in your favor. Embiggen Druid still works pretty fine with an added Witching Hour instead of Leroy, and you can even try the new Quest Druid with Kel'Thas, but it's not a cheap deck by any means, and it's not really easy to pilot as well. Moving down to the Rogue, which is another class that grabs the tier 1 position with several decks during the whole expansion. Right now, Malygos OTK Galakrond Rogue is the archetype that seems to be best out of the bunch. It's doing pretty good in High Legend, since it has very favorable matchups with the decks out there. It plays out the first half of the game like a normal Galakrond Rogue would, but after the Galakrond drops, things go out of hand pretty fast. If you get Malygos for free, it's gonna be great for you, but even if you don't, the ton of coins you receive from the Skulkers usually is enough to OTK your opponent. On the matchups, things don't look too hot for you, but if you're not seeing those decks too often, you should be good. Keep in mind that these stats are still skewed from the pre-half meta, so the situation doesn't look as bad in reality. It's a high skill cap deck, so if you're good with it, things will be a lot greener here. For the Mulligan, you want your Cats, Backstabs, Early Invokes and Galakrond. tAwA and Krunks are also worth considering the keep, because you're quite dependent on those free card draws. If you're going second, Edwin and the Miscreant are also pretty good for you. You can also keep playing Galakrond and Highlander Galakrond Rogue. Both are doing still pretty good with minor adjustments. I've put in a Life Drinker in my Galakrond Rogue for that extra reach and some extra early heal. A Mana Saber can also do the trick. Next up is Mech Paladin. This is another token deck that remained in the top spots of the current expansion. This version utilizes the solo adventure cards Shotbot and Frenzied Fellwing for that extra board presence. It's very hard to play against once they start popping off, and if you don't have a couple of board clears, it's game over pretty fast. The deck can go wide and it can go tall, depending on the opponent's resources. It can deny rogues good sap opportunities, and it can deny swipes and other AoEs for other classes, just by magnetizing, so knowing what your opponent might have against you is even a bigger plus with this deck. For the matchups, only warriors and priests can be a problem. Warriors have too many AoEs for your early game, and they can go wide on you as well, and priests have everything. You can still win against those with some luck, but if they get the cards they need in the early game, you won't be able to do much. For the Mulligan, you want to curve out. Crystology, Galvanizer and Skyclaw can be amazing for you, and if you already have Crystology, you can consider even keeping more expensive mechs, because you will consistently be drawing 1 and 2 drops. If you're going first, you really want to find those 1 and 2 drops, but if you're going second, things go a lot more flexibly, especially if you have Galvanizer. Other than Mech Paladin, I don't think there's any other Paladin deck you should be going for here. Pure Paladin might be okayish for you, but it's less than 50% win rate on the overall stats, so keep that in mind. I guess Shrivala Paladin can also be okay. And the last deck on this list is gonna be Galakrond Warrior. This deck is still doing pretty amazing, and even though it lost 2 of its main draw engines, the 2 Battle Rages do just as fine. You can still see a lot of these in High Legend, and they can even close out the game before it even comes down to Galakrond. They have a lot of early pressure with those Bomb Wranglers, and the free damage from those invokes stacks up pretty quickly. A well-timed Mercenary can be a game changer even on an Armorsmith in the early game, and those Scions trade pretty much everything if you are already invoked twice. Having access to half an OTK with those elites, Inner Rage and Mercenaries is quite strong in the mid-game, and your opponent can never be too sure if he will be able to see his next turn if you have 7 mana and a bunch of cards in hand. The matchups are not too accurate again, but you get the idea. Big Druids can be a problem, and Priests are not fun either, but the rest should be decent or great for you. I don't see too many Priests nowadays, so if that's the case for you as well, then this should be fine. For the Mulligan, your Bomb Wranglers are MVP. Your Ritual Choppers and 1-drops are also pretty worth the keep. Depending on the matchup, Awaken can also be pretty good for you, and you can even figure out a good combo with the Mercenary, so the Mulligan would be pretty different for you each game. You can even keep Galakrond in some slow matchups. Aside from Galakrond Warrior, you can also go for Highlander Warrior as well, which is doing pretty good as well, if not even better. Dr. Boom did get unnerfed on 7 mana again, so you can abuse that while you still can. There are quite a few other good decks that are still doing pretty well, aside from the ones I listed now. Highlander Mage is still doing pretty good, and so is Res Priest. Gala and Zulok are also doing pretty fine, and so is Aggro Overload Shaman. But like I said, don't craft too much, because it's hard to say which of these decks will remain relevant in the new meta. And we are losing the 3 oldest sets, so if you're not a wild player, crafting those would be a huge no-no. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope this helps you figure out what you will be playing until Ashes of Outland comes out. Good luck in the new ranked system, and thanks for watching. I'm Kris O Five, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.